How did I go from being raised in a single parent household in Arlington, Virginia to making over $300,000 per year from my computer through various tech jobs and investments? Today, I'll be going over my story from start to finish. Who knows, you might have a similar story to mine and be inspired by the obstacles that I went through to get to where I am today. Let's get into it. I'm 31, I'm from Arlington, Virginia. My mom and dad met at Langley Air Force Base in Hampton, Virginia, which is where my mom is from. My dad's from Louisiana, and he grew up in extreme poverty conditions, and he was willing to do anything to not be in poverty when he got older. So my dad ended up joining the Air Force at the age of 17. Before he even graduated high school, he joined the Air Force so he can go into basic training, and that's how he was able to get to Langley Air Force Base to meet my mom. My parents got divorced when I was 2 years old, and that left me being raised by a single mother, and she did everything that she could to provide for me. She ended up moving us from Hampton, Virginia to Arlington, Virginia because there's more opportunity in the DMV area. She was making $12 an hour as a bank teller, and she was also using credit cards to help provide for us. My mom was willing to do anything to make sure that I had the best opportunities possible, so she ended up using a friend's address in a different city so I could go to better elementary schools than the area that I was living in. So I ended up going to school in Alexandria, Virginia instead of Arlington, Virginia because the schools were much better. I grew up playing basketball at a young age. My dad taught me how to play basketball when I was about 3 or 4 years old, and I was so good that in elementary school I was being recruited by Boo Williams, who has a very well-known AAU team. He wanted me to play with a previous WNBA player. Her name is Tiara Ruffin-Pratt. Since my mom and my dad got divorced, my dad had a total of 3 kids and really couldn't afford to pay for the AAU prices because they were so expensive. That decision alone was a major turning point in my life, and that ended up stunting my basketball skill set and development as a basketball player. I still ended up playing basketball during the summer when I went to my grandmother's house in Hampton, Virginia. I would go to Allen Iverson's basketball camp every single year, and I would always stand out. I also grew up with Allen Iverson's niece and nephew, and we would play basketball all the time, so I still was very good at basketball, but I did not reach my full potential because I did not join that AAU team. Growing up, I wanted to have the best of the best and the newest electronics out, so I always had Sony Walkman players. I had all of the different consoles that my mom would get me, and growing up, we didn't have enough money to get memory cards for our system to save our gameplay. So we would have to start the video games over and over and over again because we didn't have enough money to get the memory cards to save our gameplay. Fast forward to the 6th grade. With my love of electronics and video games, I wanted to build my first computer, and I built this computer by using YouTube and University and different Newegg guides. So I went to Micro Center and I bought parts on Newegg.com, and that helped me build my first computer in 6th grade. So being in middle school and building up my computer, that is really what sparked my interest in IT, but I still wanted to play basketball professionally. Once I got to high school, I was sleeping through all of my classes. I had absolutely no interest in school. I had no interest in any of the classes that they were teaching us. I did not want to learn about history and English and science and things like that. All I wanted to do was play basketball, and that's it. One day I found out about this vocational school that my district had, and at this vocational school, it allowed us to skip our regular classes. I was willing to do anything to get out of going to regular school, so I decided to look more into this vocational school. And once I took a deeper look at this vocational school, I saw that they had IT classes, culinary classes, welding, and all kinds of different trades that you could do at this school. So I decided to take one of the IT classes. They had an option for us. You could either do a class that was teaching you networking, where you can get your CCNA certification, or they had another class which was a basic IT class, and you could get your CompTIA A+ certification. I decided to go with the class that was teaching you how to get your CompTIA A+ because it was much easier than the CCNA. Being in this class was exactly what I needed to get out of regular school. While I was in this IT class, we were able to listen to our iPods every day, do a lot of worksheets, and I really could just zone in and focus in on the IT work and knowledge that I was gaining. So after being in the program for a few months, I ended up sitting for the CompTIA A+ certification, and I ended up getting my CompTIA A+ certification at the age of 16. From there, that's when I ended up landing my first IT internship. At 16 years old, I was making $10 an hour as an IT intern, and I thought I hit it big. I didn't know at the time, but this would be first first of many tech jobs for me. My second tech job came once I ended up going to college and getting another internship. I went to college on a basketball scholarship, so of course I had to pick a major, and I decided to pick a computer science major. And this was extremely tough for me. I picked the computer science major because my dad was telling me that computer science is where to go because that's where the money is at. I wanted to do just a regular IT degree, but listening to my dad, he said this is where I could make six figures, so I decided to focus on the computer science degree. Now, mind you, I had never programmed before in my life, so this was extremely hard for me trying to juggle basketball and trying to juggle learning computer science so I could become a software engineer. Since it was hard for me to juggle both, I decided to make a decision to just focus on my tech career, and since focusing on my tech career, I was able to completely change my life. I ended up focusing on my tech career, and I got my first internship that ended up sponsoring my government security clearance. At this time, I was 18 years old with a government security clearance and my second IT internship under my belt. At this time, I was 18 years old making $12.65 an hour at this IT help desk internship. It still wasn't enough money for me, so I decided to work two jobs on the side as well. So I had a part-time job working at Kids Foot Locker. I was making $5.25 an hour, and I also had another job working at Polo, and I was making $7.25 an hour. So I was working three jobs at the age of 18, one IT internship making $12.75, one job with Kids Polo, and one job with Foot Locker, and this ended up causing me to have a major burnout. You cannot work 7 days a week trying to make a lot of money. People tell us all the time that you must work harder if you want to make a lot of money, and this is the furthest thing from the truth. I was working the hardest that I had ever worked in my life, but I was burnt out and I really wasn't making that much money. So I decided to just focus on my tech career, and I let go of the other two jobs. And at this point, I was figuring out what's going to make me the most money in my tech career. While I was in college, I ended up meeting a close friend that introduced me to the National Society of Black Engineers. This organization is also known as NSBE, and when I found out about NSBE, I knew this would change everything for me because NSBE offered you so many opportunities to go to a career fair that would allow you to interview with so many different top companies. Every major tech company that you can think of is at the NSBE National Convention. On top of the major big tech companies, also the government agencies and government contractors are there as well. So I was extremely excited to go to this national convention, but once I got there, I was not focused at all. Me and my friends, we started partying and started drinking, and next thing you know, I woke up the next day and they told me, hey, you're in trouble, you're getting kicked out of this organization. I had no idea what happened because we were partying and drinking the night before, so I didn't end up going to the NSBE National Career Fair because they told me I couldn't attend any other events at the conference. Even though they kicked me out of the organization, I did not let that stop me. I got on my laptop and I started applying to as many tech internships that I could find. I ended up going on to usajobs.gov. I saw a lot of different IT internships, so I started applying to them. A few weeks later, I landed my first tech internship with the United States Air Force, and I was a computer science trainee. So this was when I really hit it big. Once I got my first internship with the Air Force, I was 19 years old and I was making $14.60. They ended up moving me to Boston, Massachusetts to work this job, and I stayed there for 2 years. The next internship that I ended up getting, I actually got it because I went to the Black Engineers of the Year Award Conference, which is also known as BEA. It's held in the DMV area every single year. I met a recruiter that helped me get this job with Northrop Grumman. The job that I got with Northrop Grumman was in Herndon, Virginia, and I was a software engineer intern. So this was my first internship where I actually did technical software engineering work, and I was extremely excited. I got the job with Northrop Grumman at 21 years old, and I was making $22 an hour. So now I have 3 internships under my belt. I'm 21 years old and I'm a senior in college. I ended up transferring to Virginia Commonwealth University because I didn't want to go to the first school, which was Christopher Newport, that gave me the basketball scholarship anymore. Throughout my time at VCU, I was pretty much told by my advisors that it would take me 5.5 years to graduate. I ended up focusing so much on my schoolwork and cramming so many classes that I only graduated 1 semester late, even after transferring. Before graduation, I went super hard on applying for tech jobs, and I ended up getting 7 different tech job offers before I even graduated college. With all these different offers, I had no idea which one I was going to take. I had different offers from the federal government and in many different government contractor companies. To my surprise, before graduation, I was told that I was going to be the class speaker. I had no idea that I was going to be the class speaker because I didn't even come into VCU with a computer science major declared. I had to come in undeclared because my GPA was so low from the first school that I went to. So this was amazing to me, and I surprised my parents. I didn't even tell them that I was going to be the class speaker. I felt like I was the most improved player, as if I was still playing basketball, but this was just a different league that I was in now. So I ended up graduating from VCU with 7 different job offers, and I decided to go with Raytheon because they were paying me $72,500 a year, and they were sponsoring my top secret SCI clearance. So from the age of 16 to the age of 21, I went from making $10 an hour to making $72,500 a year as a software engineer for a government contractor company. And this isn't just any old government contractor company. Raytheon is one of the top 3 government contractor companies out there, and they had so many opportunities for me to work either in the States or overseas. I stayed at Raytheon in the States for 2 years, and throughout that time, I got a promotion to software engineer 2, and this brought my salary up to $85,000 a year. So at 23 years old, I was now making $85,000, but I still wanted more, and I wanted to be an overseas government contractor. Since I wanted to be an overseas government contractor, I started looking for ways for me to get overseas. I ended up finding an internal position with Raytheon, and I got the position by getting my Security Plus certification. This Security Plus certification completely changed everything for me, and it allowed me to go overseas as a radar system engineer. My first overseas role was in Japan. I was 24 years old, making $140,000 a year. I stayed in Japan for a year and a half, and I ended up getting a job in Taiwan at 25 years old, making $225,000 a year. Taiwan was a great opportunity, but I was living on top of a mountain, and we worked crazy hours. There would be times where I would work 92 hours a week, and there would also be times where I would work 26 days in a row, and then I'd take a week off. So the work-life balance definitely wasn't there, but since we were living on a mountain, there really wasn't anything else to do. At work, we had a pretty chill work environment, but we got paid the big bucks just in case anything happened with the radar system, and somebody needed to be there to make sure that it can get back up and running and operational within a timely manner. Since I was working over 90 hours a week in Taiwan, I wanted to find something else with better work-life balance. Then the pandemic hit, and that threw off all of my plans. Before the pandemic, I had 2 different government contracts lined up where I was going to be working in Qatar. My first overseas government contract I had lined up, I would have made $50,000 in 2 months. And then the second overseas contract that I had, it was also going to be in Qatar, and I would have been making $180,000 in 9 months. Both of those were ripped away from me because of the pandemic. They ended up shutting down the airports literally 1 day before I was flying out. So from there, I had to figure out a new plan to get back overseas. For the time being, I ended up working at Fort Hood as the lead radar system engineer, waiting to deploy in a new location overseas. But I had no idea that they were going to want to deploy me out to Saudi Arabia. I had no plans on going to Saudi Arabia, so I had to find a different program to go on. If I would have deployed to Saudi Arabia, I would have been making about $300,000 a year. But to me, the type of living conditions that they were in were not something that I was willing to do just because they were paying me a lot of money. From there, I ended up getting another job in South Korea, but before I deployed to South Korea, I had to do training in LA for 3 months. So after the 3 months of training was done, I deployed to South Korea, and I was making about $210,000 a year, but I only was working 40, sometimes 50 hours a week. So it was a much better work-life balance, and I enjoyed my time in South Korea a lot until it became time for me to go. I stayed in South Korea for 8 months, and then I came back to the States. After I got back to the States, I had been overseas for 5 years from the age of 24 to 29 years old, and I decided I needed to take a break. So I took 8 months off from working, and then that's when my friend hit me up with the best opportunity ever. This opportunity was a job to work 100% remote for a GovTech startup that focused on cybersecurity, and with this opportunity, I was going to be a federal senior technical account manager making $275,000 a year. So I was 29 making $275,000 a year, working 100% remote from home. But even though I was spending that time working my 9 to 5, I also wanted to share my knowledge and share my journey with other people to help them get into the GovTech industry as well. So I decided to start making short form content on TikTok and Instagram, giving away all of the free game about the GovTech industry. So far, I've made over 600 different videos, giving away a lot of information on how you can get into the GovTech industry. I have been anonymous on Twitter for 8 years before I ever even showed my face, and I decided that it was time for me to start showing other people who I am so I can make a bigger impact. Since making over 600 short form videos, I've grown a following of over 180,000 followers on TikTok and Instagram, and I've helped hundreds of people get into the GovTech industry and make six figures in this industry without even having a degree. My goal has always been to make a big impact and help as many people as possible make six figures so we can close the wealth gap. After going through mental health issues while working my 100% remote job, making $275,000 a year, I decided to quit. And if you want to know more about why I quit this extremely high paying job, you can go watch the other video on my channel because I break down exactly what I went through over the past 12 months. So now that I have my focus back, I'm building my own government contracting company with my dad, and that's a full-time job in itself, focused on building relationships and putting out different proposals to win government contracts. I'm making between $30,000 to $50,000 a month making tech content for the top tech companies. I'm building the biggest GovTech educational company with the goal of helping 1,000 people break into the GovTech industry by the year 2025. And I'm also launching a GovTech conference through my nonprofit that will be held in DC next year. At this conference, we'll focus on the career skills, and this conference will be unlike any other conference you've ever been to before, so you don't want to miss it. So now my day-to-day looks much different. I'm spending most of my time making tech content, technical lectures, and career content to help people get into the GovTech industry. I'm also spending more time with my family and friends, so I have better work-life balance, and I'm sharing my entire journey with everybody here on my different platforms, and I'm loving every minute of it. I honestly don't think I would have ever made it this far if I wouldn't have always been focused on opportunities and maximizing my income in the GovTech industry. So that's my story, from using friend addresses to get into better schools, to working from home making 10 times more than my teachers did, and building an audience that I can talk to about the things that I love. One of those things being the GovTech industry in particular. Matter of fact, I have an entire training program where I show you step by step on how you can earn a high-paying GovTech career without having a degree and without going back to school and only using certifications. I hold your hand through the entire thing, and this includes showing you the exact certifications to get, to also showing you what type of skills that you need to focus on to land that tech job, helping you be seen by recruiters and prepare for the hiring process, and much more. If this sounds like something you'd like, click the first link in the description below. And if you want to learn how to get into GovTech for free, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I'll teach you everything that I know, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. I'll see you on the next one.